And breaking development on the entire Rafale politics. There is some positive news here. Republic exclusive. Indian Air Force Deputy Chief Air Marshal Nambiar completes flight of the first Rafale manufactured for India. He flew from the front cockpit. Air Marshal Nambiar was among the first test pilots of the LCA Tejas program and has flown precision strike missions on Tiger Hill during the 1999 Kargil conflict. These are exclusive pictures only with Republic TV. And the Indian Air Force Deputy Chief completed a front seat sortie in a Rafale at the Istris Air Base in France. He flew a Dassault-owned Rafale testbed sporting the India-specific software and system enhancement and separate from the first Rafale for India. It's important to mention that Indian Air Force Deputy Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Raghunath Nambiar, on Thursday took this test flight of the fighter aircraft. Even as political bickering continues here in India on Rafale politics, this is what India needs. This is what we deserve, and India is certainly doing that. What amazing and brilliant photographs that we have got. And now joining us on the phone line is our Deputy Editor, Snehesh Alex Philip as well. All smiles there, Snehesh. In the photograph, we can very well see the Air Force Deputy Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Raghunath Nambiar. He's smiling, he's waving, and there is a certain positivity in the air. Could you explain how important this mission really was, the first sortie?
Absolutely, Aditya. The Indian Air Force is thrilled to have finally got a chance to fly the Rafale fighter jets, something that it has been waiting for nearly 2 decades. Remember, that was in 2000 when the Indian Air Force moved in a proposal seeking the MMRC, which is the Medium Multi-Role Combat Aircraft. It's only 18 years later, the Indian Air Force is still to get it, and September next year is when the Indian Air Force will be handed the first Rafale fighter jet. It's something that they've been waiting. This is a big day for them because remember that, Air Marshal Nambiar, he's the Deputy Chief of the Indian Air Force. He has been a test pilot. He was one of the first test pilots of the LCA Tejas and has flown missions during the Kargil battle itself. Today, as a test pilot, he flew the Rafale made on Indian specifications. Now the Air Force will carry out further trials and will give the go-ahead for France to develop the rest. But this is a big news as far as the Air Force is concerned, because remember that the Air Force sanctioned strength starts at 42 squadrons, but it is down to a paltry 32. And the next 1 year itself, 1.5 years, there are at least 3 more squadrons of the Air Force that will be phased out. So this is something that the Air Force has been waiting for nearly 2 decades, and finally, and that is why you see a smiling and a proud Air Marshal Nambiar, who is also in charge of the entire procurement process of the Indian Air Force. Aditya.
Well, Snehesh, staying with these pictures, this is something that doesn't only thrill the Indian Air Force, but the entire country. And each and every patriotic person, each and every Indian would be proud today looking at these pictures, and we would be waiting for Rafale to in fact land here in India finally. But could you take us through this 1 hour long mission? How difficult was this? Was this really a test mission? And when exactly did this take place, and where exactly in France?
Well, this was a test mission. This is a test flight that has been manufactured as per the India-specific enhancements, including the software and other gadgets that India needs. Now, the Air Force, remember that Air Marshal Nambiar is also a test pilot. While he's the Deputy Chief, he has the distinction of being one of the first test pilots of the LCA Tejas, way back in the 90s, when in the early 2000s when he flew the Tejas. And today, as a test pilot, he's now flown the Rafale fighter jet, which has been manufactured as per India's specifications. Now remember that this is a 1 hour long sortie. During this sortie, what top sources in the defense establishment tell us is that he carried out various maneuvers and carried out tests on various software and the gadgets that have been fitted on board this Rafale aircraft. Remember that the India-specific Rafale comes with 14 enhancements. These also include the Israeli helmet, special radar system, and also the weapon system that would be a game changer in this region as such. Remember that one of the biggest missiles that comes with Rafale is the fact is the Meteor. It's a beyond visual range missile with a strike range of about 150 kilometers. That means India can shoot down any aircraft flying in the Pakistani airspace without having to cross the Indian airspace. That is because the missile has a distance of 150 kilometers. Another big point about Rafale is that it's also capable of delivering strategic weapons. And what I mean by strategic weapons is that it can be fine-tuned to deliver a nuclear payload also. Initially, right now, India has ordered in for off-the-shelf purchase of 36 Rafale fighter jets. They would be based at two different bases. One, which is in Ambala, which will be looking after the border with Pakistan, and the other would be based in Hashimara, which will look after our defenses in the north, by which I mean the border with China. So this is an aircraft that the Indian Air Force has been waiting for. As I said earlier, the Indian Air Force has first moved in way back in 2000 for the medium multi-role combat aircraft. And it is only now that the Indian Air Force has finally got a chance to fly the Rafale that has been made for them. At the same time, two test pilots and an entire technical team of the Indian Air Force have already reached France. They'll be undergoing a 1 month of training, a 1 year of training session, and these are the guys who will now undertake further tests on the Rafale and clear them one by one. The first Rafale fighter jet meant for India is supposed to be delivered to the Indian Air Force in September 2019, and by March 2020 is when the Indian Air Force is likely to fly in, because remember, this is off the shelf, and likely to fly in about 6 Rafale fighter jets to India.
So this is a big boost. Thank you very much for joining us. This is the first test flight, Indian Air Force's first Rafale flight in Istres airfield in France. What a moment really this is. Saluting the Indian Air Force, saluting the forces of India, and India awaits, even as this is certainly a moment that has thrilled the entire country.